The Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dave. I am here with Greg, and we are the Unconventional Therapists, and we are totally unconventional today.
Okay.
Totally unconventional.
Yes, that's true. Actually, you sound like you got a little pep in your step. Like you got a little bit of excitement about you today.
There is a little bit of excitement because I kind of like the topic of today. Well, I like
all right. Well,
most of the topics we're
before
doing
you burn it, as you often do, let me give them a little overview about what we're talking about here.
Oh,
I like to lead them in gently.
New. That's something new.
That's right, something new, right? Hey, you know what? It's consistency is, the pathway to success.
Yeah.
I just kind of invented that. So listen,
hey, can I before you do that, let me just share a funny thing that happened this weekend. So this weekend I had a pretty busy one. I had 2 weddings and a bachelor party.
Wow.
And the cool thing was, while I was at one of the weddings and the bachelor party, I had a number of my friends and people that I'm familiar with mention that they listen to this podcast. And I'm like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But one comment in particular, I thought you'd get a kick out of. Someone said, I thought that you two were either best friends or a couple, the way that you bicker. And I thought that was pretty hilarious because but then like I kind of said how like you're one of the only people that I often don't see eye to eye with. I shouldn't say often, but like frequently we don't see eye to eye, or we can have those debates and we never get mad at each other, which is
I've never
why this is fun.
It's a model for, I think, America that people need to kind of like dip a toe in. Guess what, guys? You can argue and disagree, and it's okay. Yeah. Doesn't mean you hate each other, because there's way more. Dave, if we could find a lot of things that we do have in common, for sure.
But that's less fun to like have an episode about, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So let's just keep arguing then.
Yes,
please the people.
So we are buddies.
So listen,
we're
Dave.
Not a couple, just so everyone's clear. We just argue like a couple, I guess.
Yeah. Oh man, I bet you when people were like, maybe there are a couple of a lot of broken hearts out there.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm very sure about that.
Yeah, like when like one of the new kids on the block, or like one of the guys from a boy band gets a significant other, everyone's like, come on. That's that kind of vibe,
Yeah.
All right, so now we're talking about boy.
Our managers told us to pretend to be single, right?
That's right.
Yeah, managers.
So listen, Dave, it's time to get serious. We're talking about boy bands here, and this is not the vibe we're hoping for with this time of year, especially.
Okay.
So we all want to know the answers to these unanswerable questions, right? Like, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? What happens when you die? The easiest way to handle this problem is to ask someone who's been there. So, like, for example, somebody goes on vacation, somebody goes to Europe, you ask them, how was your trip, right? So if someone crosses to the other side, it could be a little bit more difficult to ask, how was your journey? What's it like over there? Unless you have a Ouija board.
Okay. I think I took a nap mid.
I know you're not. Listen, I know you're not a huge fan. You're not a huge fan of the. If you think that the overview is boring, wait till you hear the origins.
Oh yes. Greg, you said like this isn't a topic we should talk about boy bands about, but I bet the new kids on the block were sitting around doing seances and using Ouija boards.
You think so?
Why not? They're just a couple of bros from Boston. Why not?
Are they
too good for it?
I don't see them being very Victorian. Sitting around and having like a seance. Do you? Maybe they sold their souls to the devil.
Victorian.
Yeah, when I think of Ouija boards, I definitely think of. Well, listen, that's what the time period it comes from.
All right, so later, let's talk about this, because I have no idea where you got Victorian when you're thinking your experience with Ouija boards.
Yeah,
is Victorian
in a sense.
All right. We'll put this on hold because this is interesting. That is not my background with Ouija.
Do you want me to explain my point of view right now, or do you want me to put on the back burner?
Put it on the back burner.
Okay. So patented in the 1890s, so there's a hint there, by inventor and businessman William Fuld. brilliant, almost insidious marketing, right? Taking advantage of people who have lost a significant other. So this isn't the most important thing, and this isn't what we really want to get from it. But I just want to kind of make that clear. Like, this is a game, right? Go ahead.
But it's got a model that has been around for a long, long time. So, like,
Dave, guess what? You're doing that thing to me that I do to you.
Yeah, but like, say that. Then.
Okay, I will. All right,
say it.
All right, I will. So all right. So the board games that Dave has probably 17 of. That's a brand name, like Kleenex or something, and it's just
Jello.
Right. What? Okay. Then what's Jello then?
Gelatin.
Okay. All right. Perfect example, I guess. Right. So it
literally is.
So Jello is to gelatin as Ouija boards is to talking boards, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So the name itself, Ouija, has a legend all of its own, and I love saying that legend has it, and that's kind of where we're going with this. That the word Ouija came from a spiritualist asking the board to name itself. And the word Ouija supposedly meant in Egyptian good luck, which, Dave, that could be ominous or optimistic, right? Don't you kind of feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Depends how you say it.
Like good luck.
Good luck.
Or seriously, good luck.
Hey, good luck, dude.
So it's also people say that it comes from both the French and German words for yes, which would make it the yes board. Now, do you have any?
I thought it was yes, yeah.
Whatever.
Isn't it yes, yeah?
Yeah, but what is have you any opinion or have you heard anything about the naming of the board?
Exact same thing you just said.
Okay, all right. So these things,
it's one of those things. I feel like that's part of the marketing, right?
Yeah,
I feel like we're not going to know the truth, or we couldn't know the truth, because even the origin story is part of the marketing. This has Blair Witch vibes to it, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes.
Okay, so you lost me.
Okay, all right. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say Blair Witch?
No, I mean, when I think of Blair Witch, I think of perfect marketing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but how?
Because so there's a story based like that. They're selling you a story to make you buy into the validity of the product, right? And the same with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The first line of the movie is this is based on true events. And with Blair Witch, we had this incredible marketing strategy where we actually thought these people were missing in the woods, and we didn't know that we thought we might be seeing a documentary.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah, exactly. I'll never forget that experience of going to the movies and being like, oh, okay, all right, this is, and then leaving and being like, I think that's not real. I hope it's not. Same with the Ouija board. It's like they're trying to make us believe the validity of this. So it's all part of the marketing. Do they believe it? From what I understood, even the people that were behind the marketing of the Ouija boards were not like spiritual people. They're businessmen.
Right. And I think people were a lot more susceptible to the spiritual world in the late 1800s and 1900s.
This is like the rising of spirituality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, spiritualism, yeah, absolutely. So, but, since, we're talking like 500 BC, there's people, Pythagoras in his triangles, right? He had a similar contraption where he would use this like huge kind of glass wheeling tray kind of thing, and he would have all his students put their hands on it, and they would push it over certain symbols on the ground. So that's a kind of like right on the nose. I think of the oracles, Delphi, right? It's kind of the same thing where you're asking something.
Magic 8 Ball.
Magic 8 Ball, right? Yeah, exactly. What's
we should have done an episode on the origin of the Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're sure? Because I feel like it would be 3 minutes long.
Hey, that's fine.
Okay,
I'm sure there'd be a lot of happy people about that.
A short one. Yeah, I know. You're right about that.
They got to the point finally.
All right, and the last thing I'll say about the origin stories of like how the construction of it and the marketing is, William Fulp partnered with a man who was a coffin maker. So to help make the first model. So like it's possible that, I mean, I'm thinking if the models that are coming out in the 1890s and the 1900s, like these might have been made out of wood, right?
Right.
And is it kind of like, it seems pretty appropriate that these could have been made out of coffin wood.
I doubt that's the case, but that would be awesome, and I would.
I mean, like not like a used coffin, but I mean, even being in the same kind of vicinity.
I'm gonna be honest with you though. If we wanted one, we could not afford one. It was they would be, outrageously priced.
So why do you have a your ear to the ground on this kind of thing? You're in the market for.
Well, I mean, even just like I'm trying to remember the oldest one I have, but like I've seen it going for like 150 to 200.
Dave, by the end of this episode, I'm going to think that maybe you should rethink having those things in your house.
Why?
Just hold on to your hat.
Is there something you're going to tell me?
I think so. Yeah, there's a lot I'm going to tell you.
I am on the edge of my seat.
Let's talk about what these things are. So first of all, Dave, they're occult paraphernalia. How do you feel about having that in your house?
Excellent.
Step one.
Thank you for informing me. That is great.
No problem. It's a talking board, so you use a planchette, right? You put your fingers on the planchette to guide to yes or no and the alphabet.
I hate that word. I hate that word.
What? Planchette?
Yeah, I didn't know that that's what that was called.
What
did you heard it, and I was like, I never called it anything. I was like, that thingy that goes on the Ouija board. And when I heard that people saying planchette, I was like, I don't like that word.
So what's going on here with the planchette? And I'm sorry, the thingy that you put your fingers on. It's called, in a psychological sense, automatism. And what that is, it's like the performance of an action without conscious thought or intention. We've seen this before. Sleepwalking, right? Automatic writing, hypnosis. It's sort of along those lines, right? And there's a couple different ways to look at this, right? Ed and Lorraine Warren, you know who these people are, Conjuring fame, and they were the investigators at Amityville. They see it as some kind of gateway to hell, or, Exorcist did a lot to kind of perpetuate that idea, right? It has this huge negative stigma, and that's one way of looking at it. So others can think it's just neutral, or even it's just a game. But in psychology, or for psychologists, I think they would kind of view it as a glimpse into the subconscious, which is where I think you're going to find this interesting, right? So it's like your deepest, darkest desires sort of coming through your fingertips, in a sense, right? So the things that are you're maybe, like Freud would say, you're repressing them, or things that would come out in a dream, or things that would come out in your negative or intrusive thoughts, these are coming out through your fingertips, and maybe you don't even know that they're in there. So to me, it's like this, your subconscious. In the past, we've talked about it as a realm where like your monsters exist, and maybe this is a way for them to escape, right?
Okay, that's one way to look at it. You're talking how do you say it? Automatism? Automatism. So there's something called ideomotor action.
Okay.
But it sounds similar to what you're saying, but it's different in a way. So, all right, when you think so this is like something that's been first documented in like 1850s. There was it's like involuntary movement.
Yeah.
You're kind of thinking about it, but you're not. So it's weird. It's so the planchette seems like it's dragging and moving us along, but we're actually doing it. We're just not realizing, because it's kind of like our subconscious is moving it. Sort of like the what's the thing with the rods? When you hold the rods, you ever seen that
dowsing
thing
rods.
where they
dowsing rods.
Exactly, how they look like they're moving on their own, but in actuality it's our own muscles that are moving them. So it's the same kind of effect. And then our mind does this weird thing where and this kind of reminds me of like when you go see a medium or like you go see a psychic or something like that, right? And they say like, oh, do you know someone whose name starts with M? You're like, yeah,
John Edwards.
Yeah. So it's like you connect your own dots. So like, all right, you got the audio motor action happening, and all of a sudden it lands on like the M, and you're like, oh my God, it's going to start spelling. And then subconsciously you're kind of moving it with your own muscles, but it feels like you're not moving it, because sometimes we can actually have movements that we're not even fully aware that we're doing, because it's like kind of our mental, it's up in our mental area. You know what I mean?
So, all right, I'm so glad you're talking about this because you're hitting something very important, and that's why I like took down a few stories that we'll get to because it, sometimes there were, say for example, you know, I know my neighbor hides money in his backyard, right? And then I'm like, you know what? I better consult the board about this. And the board says you must take the money. He wants you to have it, whatever, right? It's like you can almost use it to outsource, like your subconscious. Like that's not my responsibility. The board's telling me that that's okay, so I'm doing the right thing now.
Yeah.
Do you see? That's kind of like something that's kind of interesting about it. And the other thing I'm thinking about when you're saying that is, so at the time, and especially going into the 1900s, there is the spiritualist movement that we're not going to talk a ton about, but because I think it could be its own episode. But it's sort of like Martin Luther in the Reformation, where he's like, hey, look, you can kind of you don't need these priests doing the mass in Latin and then telling you exactly what you need to do. You could read the Bible and kind of make your own interpretation and do your own thing. So instead of having to go to like a spiritualist and paying money and having them do a seance for you, you can get this board and kind of ask it all the questions you want and have probably the same result.
Sure.
I think that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. But it's cool, but it's dangerous. Because
what do you mean?
That effect that I was talking about, how like we just start to make connections based on little like things that we start to observe. That's when you get into like what your example was just about, how like the board made me do it. So the board, like we involuntarily move it to a letter. We connect that to some kind of like answer that we're looking for, or that like, oh, I know what it's telling me. And then we make a meaning out of that. When in actuality, there could be zero meaning to it, or that couldn't be like totally our subconscious creating that meaning, because deep down inside, that's kind of what we wanted it to say, what we were hoping to hear. And then we are like, oh, the board told me to do it though. How many, and like what that sounds obviously terrible. Like you say that out loud and everyone's like, ooh. So it's dangerous.
That sounds like the devil made me do it. That's what it sounds like.
Sounds like the devil made me do it. Yep.
And there is this hugely negative stigma around this thing, and you have them in your house, and that's fine. But why? So there's a ton of, negative connotations about these things. What makes you comfortable? And have you not been aware of any of this?
Of course,
I know you've seen The Exorcist.
Never mind The Exorcist. What about the movie Witchboard?
Yeah, never seen it.
Oh, never mind.
What about the movie Ouija?
Well, Witchboard's significantly cooler than.
Is that sort of like an obscure older movie?
Oh, it's in 80s. I thought everyone knew it, but like I guess not.
No, I think you're gonna find it.
All right. Then how about Witchboard 2 or 3?
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, I guess I didn't know it came from something. All right. So, listen. Do you want me to reveal a couple of these little?
I want to know where the connotation to evil came. I thought you were going to tell me that.
I'm going to. I am. So don't worry. First, let me tell you these little.
Do it now.
These little vignettes are going to help do that. Okay. So I kept them really short, Dave, because I know how bored you get with me.
Yes.
Blubbering along, but listen to a couple of these, and these are all from the early days of the Ouija board. I don't know if that makes a difference, but listen to this, right? So, and I'm going to use names here because everyone's dead. So Ella Crawford. Yeah. Ella Crawford, her mother becomes obsessed with the boards.
Yeah.
The Ouija board tells her, or the talking board, whichever you prefer, tells her that the economy is going to crash. Now, this is Victorian times. They have money. The fear of poverty and underlying fear in her subconscious, right, paints a picture that they would be better off dead than having to go through the humiliating fall from grace into poverty, right? So what does she do? She drowns her daughter, and then she commits suicide with an axe. Okay? Yeah, so Dave, that right there is beginning at least a stigma with evil, because suicide with the axe seems to be a little bit like supernaturally aided.
Are you saying Lizzie Borden was supernatural?
I mean, she didn't commit suicide with an axe. That's hard to do. Murder with an axe is one
Murder
thing.
with an
Suicide
axe. Yeah.
yeah.
Get it.
I mean, so that's my first sort of thought towards
Where were the axe wounds?
in the head.
Front or back?
I'm sorry, Dave. I don't have the photos with me. The black and white photos.
Was it her face?
So that's interesting. Are you trying to give it a supernatural bend, or are you trying to do you think there's an unsolved mystery out there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll look into that.
I think we just
maybe we reopen the case. Reopen the case.
I'm gonna go to the police station. I need this cold case open now.
Backing the board on this one, I guess. So that's one unsure. Okay. Do you have anything to say about that one? Are you ready for me to move on to the next one?
Please move on.
Okay, here's a short one I want your thoughts on. May Murdoch. She asked the board if her husband is stepping out on her. The board says yes. So what's happening there, I think, is revealing, an unconscious fear, right?
Yeah.
Like her husband's cheating on her.
That's what she thinks.
That's what she thinks. And she wants it to be confirmed. And when it is confirmed by this evil board, she murders her husband.
Yep.
I mean, evil.
She made the board tell her what she wanted to hear.
Yes.
Because he had quite the insurance policy.
Well, actually, you know what? He did have an insurance policy. It was $5,000 and probably, 1910. That's a chunk of change. That's $1 trillion.
She bought one of those brand new automobiles, that they were keep talking about.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so that's two of them. And what are you starting to think here? It's giving your deepest, darkest desires credibility.
Yeah.
It's not cool. All right.
It's not the board.
All right. Well, okay. I mean, that's the thing.
The second one, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, maybe I should do another one and see if I can kind of
Yep.
Get you to buy along a little bit. So Ernest Turley, he had a beautiful ranch. Okay. So this man, Ernest Turley, had a beautiful ranch. You're going to love her name, with his wife, Dorothea.
Ooh.
And this new strapping young rancher catches her eye, right? Of course, what does she do? All the rage is these talking boards. So she consults it for advice with her daughter. And the board reveals, and this is what the planchette moves to these letters: Ernest must die. So another example of outsourcing.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
It was right. They released that one right after Ernest Scared Stupid.
Okay, and now so here's why I'm gonna Ernest Scared Stupid. That's one of my favorites. This is where the board, though, is, I think, sort of to blame, because it's giving you that ability to deceive yourself. It's making it a lot easier. And we know that the devil is just a translation of the word deceiver, right?
Yeah.
And then so she asked the board again who should do the crime, and the board conveniently chooses her daughter. And the legal defense, Dave, I'm not kidding, the board made me do it. You saw this coming.
Yep.
I mean, so I know that you don't think that it's the board making people do it. And maybe that's true. But if you have any belief in the board at all, doesn't that sort of allow for it's like skipping the prefrontal part of your brain where we make those analytical decisions and just letting the animalistic ideas of our, limbic system, or the more antiquated parts of our brain, come to the forefront and run the show. They're running the ship. I mean, it's scary.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
I wonder how you can find any excitement out of this, based on the fact that this is all we do is hear stories where people blame something else for an action.
Yeah.
We heard this in the most nonsensical way. Tupac's Tupacalypse Now album caused a man to murder cops, and it was this. The album made me do it. So that's all we hear, over and over and over again. This is nothing new. This is exactly what people do, is when they commit horrendous acts, they find something to point the blame to. And what better thing to point blame to than this thing that is supposedly supposed to talk to you and give you guidance. And at the point in time of all this, there is much debate whether this is an actual talking board or if it is like what we know it today, just a toy.
Well, the thing is, though, I don't know. Like, if this thing's allowing you the ability to consult with the darkest part of you, I don't know if that's the same thing as. Plus, you have to admit, the album Made Me Do It is different than this spiritual thing. So how many people are saying the album made me do it? And how many people do you think, if you did a study and you asked, 100 people, how many of you believe in the ability to contact spirits through a Ouija board on some level? Or at least would it make you uncomfortable, right? Like, how many people do you think would say that it's possible? Half? Maybe more?
Maybe. I don't understand. And this has always been my thought. I don't understand how it's supposed to be like it's in a box. There's no like ceremony that makes it spiritual. It's mass produced. What makes it special? I mean, if it was literally made out of the coffins of people who were buried, if they were digging up coffins and making
I see what you're saying.
The boards out of that, but like, these are just manufactured devices. What makes it special?
The formula, in a sense. So if you found this like cool witches book and it was made out of like human skin, like in Hocus Pocus and all these things, and you were like, wow, this thing has like, there's a lot of like pomp and circumstance with this thing. This thing must have some real power because of, the elements that it's made from, all this like witchy stuff, which is cool. But you went in one of the pages and you were like, oh man, I'm going to need to use this on somebody like my podcast co-host, whatever. Maybe we can stop arguing if I do this spell. And I just jot that spell down on a piece of paper. Does that spell have any less power just because I put on a piece of paper and made copies for other people to do it with their friends?
The source is what matters.
The source is what matters. But
in this theoretical example that you were giving me, the source is a book made of human flesh.
Yes, I know. I know. And
what's the source for the spirit board?
Well, that's what I mean. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So the spell is still going to work because it's taken directly from the source. And maybe whoever made this board tapped into something, some Sumerian or Babylonian ancient idea that people were doing on, like Pythagoras with his little pushy cart. Where did he learn that? That's 550 BC. Where did he learn that? And maybe this is just a formula that people need to be able to contact the dead.
I bet that we're not actually talking to the dead. I bet we're talking to aliens.
Okay, Jesus.
I mean, because aliens were around back then to help us build the pyramids and all that stuff. So they probably had a way to communicate with the aliens. And we think we're talking to the dead, but it's actually aliens.
You could be right. Sure. Yeah. I think we are talking to monsters, but the monsters, as we found in all our episodes.
Don't call them that.
Well, listen, monsters are.
What are you trying to create here, Greg?
Think about it like this. The Salem witch trials. Witches are known to be these scary, like, beings. But who were the monsters? The people who are killing them, right? Just the normal people? We're the monsters. We're the ones. And, like, looking into our subconscious, we find them. That's what this thing is.
Greg's hating on all you right now.
Yeah, all you Puritans.
All you listening.
So I mean, I don't know. I think that it's should I do another story or
no? You sound like you believe all this.
All right, put it this way: you do have these boards in your house, right?
I do. I have 4.
And you were like, "Hey, Greg, let's run this. Let's do this with let's do a little. I don't know if you have to set it up. I don't know if you have to say a little thing first, but I would be nervous. I probably wouldn't do it.
You would be, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Would you not had now? Listen, I know that you're a true skeptic, but you've dabbled with the Ouija. How many times would you say in your life?
Not many at all.
Well, we can.
So my first experience, was doing it as a kid with my sisters, and one of my sisters, my oldest one, was totally pranking us, and it was from that point on. I was like, it's just something that people mess with each other on.
Okay, but have you? So that was one time. Have you done it other times? And did anything strange
never
ever happen?
I didn't do it anymore because I was like, nope, it's not real.
Well, did your sister tell you she was pranking you?
Yeah, I knew she was. We knew she
Or
was.
was she protecting you by saying, hey, look,
No,
I'm freaked out, but I'm going to
no.
be protected?
No, she was pranking us.
Okay. Well, I think that if you everyone is going into it with the same intention to kind of like, let's
All
do
right.
this for real.
Have you done it?
No.
All right. So you're talking, so you have. You need to do a Ouija board and mushrooms.
Okay.
And
but we're not allowed to do the podcast.
Or you cannot do this episode anymore.
Yes. All right. All right. We'll set it up.
Yes, that'll be the greatest night ever.
Yeah, let's do it. The hell with it. Well, I'll tell you what.
You
already messed up.
Terrible night.
You already made one mistake because it's not going to be at night.
And have you do a Ouija board? That would be a recipe for disaster.
Oh, dude, come on!
I would film it because that would be. Amazing.
We're gonna do mushrooms and the Ouija board on the same night. That would be
gold right there.
All right. All right. Let me fill out a will first.
So, all right. I hear what you're saying. You are a man of caution. You are a man of spirituality.
Yeah.
You are a man who believes that there's a lot more out there than what the eye can see. Your third eye is always watching.
Mm-hmm.
And it's seeing ghosts and goblins.
That's right.
So you feel that there is something here that possibly could be communicating with us when we do the Ouija board.
On some level, I think there's some kind of weird cosmic, whether it's in the depths of our brain or some kind of spiritual world. I don't want to say the thing where like energy doesn't die, energy doesn't go away, but there's something to that.
Let me ask you a question. What is your experience with anything along the lines of this? Mediums, seances, anything?
Dude, I don't mess with that devilry.
Palm readers.
So I almost went to a medium, but they happened to be closed. It was on a first date, and I thought it was going to be a cool thing. And the whole time I was thinking in my head, I'm like, am I really doing this? Going against my values to, have a good time on this first date? Thank God it was closed. And I had, it didn't work out because I was inauthentic the whole time. I'm like, all right, oh man, they weren't open. I'm so disappointed when in real life I was very relieved.
You want to know
why
I
don't mess with it?
You want to know why I have 4 Ouija boards?
Why?
When I was in, I think it was 2nd grade, maybe 3rd grade, when we were in CCD, my CCD teacher, we had a fill-in. My fill-in CCD teacher told us that Ouija boards were the devil's toy.
Yes.
And they were evil.
Smart lady.
I was scared of them because she petrified me. And at that time, I had already used one, like I said, with my sisters when I was much younger. But that whole thing scared me. And then I think as I got older, I kind of rebelled against everything that I was like, all right, well, that's kind of crazy. And I don't, if anyone believes that they are, I'm not like saying you're crazy. I just personally don't see that correlation over a Parker Brothers board game being a toy of the devil. I understand how when people have evil intentions and you can use anything with evil intentions, and that makes your act evil, I guess. But I don't think something is inherently evil that's like I said, a mass-produced board game made of cardboard and plastic.
So I don't think it's inherently evil. That's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and if you want to, we're not talking. Let's step away from the subconscious for a second, because I'm sure people are sick of hearing us talk about it. But say it's just a spiritual thing, right? And what it does is it opens, has to open some kind of like ethereal door, and so to like the spirit world, I guess, because that's what it would have to do. That would be the same thing as, tonight when you go to bed, just leave your door wide open. Is anybody evil gonna walk in? No, but it makes it a hell of a lot more likely. So that's where I kind of play it safe. It's almost that Pascal's wager with like believing in God. Like I think a lot of people believe in God because it's a good bet. Because if you believe in God and you're wrong and you die, it's the same. But if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God and you die and you're wrong, like you're in trouble, right? So it's like, it's that thing. Maybe I'm just cautious at the possibility, and I don't feel comfortable enough to say there's nothing going on here. Is that fair?
Sure.
And also, if you're ever going to get rid of those three things, I heard about like disposing of these things, you have to break it into 7 pieces and bury it 2 feet underground. Did you know that?
I think I've heard that back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
Also, if you don't ever set it on fire, because the board may scream, and those who hear it scream will be dead within 3 days. I don't know if that came out after Ring or what, but something about hearing the scream could kill you, right?
Kind of cool.
And I think, Dave, the way you're talking, like, is it good? Is it evil? It's just, in different hands, it's different things. In some hands, it's a magical tool. In other hands, not so much. Just like a musical instrument. Kenny G with a saxophone, magical. Me,
magical tool.
Maybe I'm just a magical tool. Just myself.
Yeah.
Dave, I want to run something else by you because it just reminded me of the last episode that I think we both enjoyed. And it's this theory, it's sort of a complicated theory about spirits where whether you believe you're reincarnated, whether you believe you go to heaven, maybe more importantly, like heaven, something like that, right? Whatever it is. What's left in the spirit world or the ethereal world or the energy left behind, it's very much like Jekyll and Hyde because, like, say, the theology behind going to heaven, just the goodness in you is going to go to heaven, right? But where's the darkness go? That's like, I think, an idea for why spirits are all evil, because it's just everyone's darkness left behind. Because that's not like allowed in heaven. I mean that certain things aren't allowed in heaven. I remember my dad told me when I was a kid that people are buried with no shoes on because there's no shoes allowed in heaven. Can that be right?
I've never heard this. That's interesting.
Right?
I believe him. I believe him because he's your dad. But
yeah, I believe him. I tend to believe him too because of his viewpoints on animals and how he thinks that all animals are better than all people.
Yes, and he's
which
correct.
Is fine.
All dogs go to heaven, so I mean,
which I'm not sure that's true.
Shut up.
Okay. Have you ever been bit by a dog though? Some dogs are bad.
No, because dogs sense evil and they don't bite me. But they bite mailmen. So
they can say, do you believe that thing when they say that a dog can see your spirit? Like a dog knows whether you're good or bad?
I do think that, yeah.
Okay, then you believe in spirits, dude.
No, I don't I think dogs can sense energy.
Okay.
Dogs sense vibes.
Okay. So you're going to talk about dogs reading your aura, but you're not willing to admit that there could be some kind of a spiritual.
Yeah, I think dogs can kind of have a sense. Like you get a sense when you're around like a creepy person.
That's true.
Or maybe you don't.
Maybe a lot of people get a sense around me.
And that's why I hate being alone.
That's why I'm growing my mustache back because I've noticed that people aren't as creeped out by me.
People have been way too comfortable around you lately. Yeah. So
I don't like it.
I got to get this mustache back.
Hey, can I ask you like something along the same lines? Because there is something. So I've never done a Ouija board, but there is something that I have done. You might not believe this, but I have been involved in some seances.
I thought I asked you that.
You said it. You said, have I ever done a Ouija board?
Oh, okay. I thought
that's different.
Right. I meant to ask, have you been part of a seance?
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't. I don't know if it's like sanctioned by whoever would do that, but it was me and my cousins, probably like 10 to 12 years old. We would do a lot of that seance stuff. We would call it a seance. A lot of light as a feather, stiff as a board. Did you ever do that?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I've done that.
I wonder if that's the same thing that you were talking about with the idiomotor thing, where
I wonder, but like you're doing it with like 2 fingers, though, right?
Did you
it's like 2 fingers on each? You use 2 fingers on each hand, and you raise the person that way. I'm trying to think. I know this is so funny. This is bringing back like childhood memories, like of me and my sisters. I know that they did that to me, and I'm trying to remember. Obviously, it didn't work. I'm assuming.
You don't remember?
I don't remember it that much.
So it's interesting that you don't remember what
my face touched the ceiling fan. That'd be awesome, actually. Like,
yeah, and they were like, "Mom, he's fine." Like I do remember doing that, and it's interesting that
did you guys lip to anyone?
See, that's the thing. Like, as I'm talking about it, I remember playing it, but I don't remember if it worked or not. And I feel like if it didn't work, I would remember, oh, that didn't work at all. But when you're a kid, maybe you kind of like just accept things like that a little easier.
Well, like I said, I vividly remember when I found out that my sister was messing with us on the Ouija board, but for some reason I can't remember this. I feel like it didn't work probably, but I'm like, maybe my mind, or maybe someone erased it from my memory.
Well, maybe it worked a little bit.
They're like, we don't want him to know this. It's dangerous.
Because you can't break the concentration. That's the idea.
Yeah.
You just got to keep saying, light as a feather, stiff as a board. Like in the
I
movie
wanna
The
do that
Craft.
again. Yeah.
Dude, that I could get behind.
So you
Like, maybe we should try it.
did that that was your seance, was trying to lift someone up with your fingers?
That was a part of it.
And then you tried talking to the deceased?
I think so.
You
Not anybody in particular, just like, hey, is anyone around? Which probably is the most dangerous way to do it.
Anyone want to take over this body?
Oh, no. Definitely wouldn't be saying stuff like that. That's not it. And if I were you, I wouldn't be saying it right around the Ouija boards because you never know. I mean, don't make sure those boxes are sealed.
I didn't light any candles, so I think I'm good.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably a part of it. Well,
you always, how do you end a session with a Ouija board? I don't think you said that, did you?
I think it says hello and goodbye, right? So
you have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cut and dry, right?
Mm-hmm.
See, I can't believe we went down that road because now I'm thinking about playing Truth or Dare. It's like all kind of in the same wheelhouse.
Truth or Dare, no, that's different though. That's just like
fun,
uncomfortable, and
because it's always weird that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it always like you're afraid of, like, you kind of want to do the dare, but you're also like, is this person a complete asshole and they're going to make me do something super embarrassing? So you don't do the dare and you stick to the truth, thinking the truth is safe. But then they ask you a really embarrassing question and you're like, oh, I should have done the dare. And then everybody picks truth and it's boring. Right.
So, all right, let me ask you this then, because I think there's some kind of contract that you go into with Truth or Dare. Now, what is the penalty? You know, say it's true, you pick truth and they ask you like a very personal question and then you don't tell the truth. Is there a penalty? Or it's just whatever?
I don't know. I haven't played Truth or Dare in decades.
Because I kind of remember there being like, if you lie, this will happen.
Oh, really? I don't think we had like no, I don't know.
It's all these things are like sort of in the same wheelhouse, like Bloody Mary and the Mirror, and all these things are sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I like played it in like a context of like a party.
Yeah, things I don't mess with.
The context of like you and your creepy friends like telling ghost stories to each other and trying to creep each other out.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised that like I was very much big into ghost stories growing up. I'm surprised that you weren't as much.
Yeah, no.
You know? That's strange.
Maybe
you were
cool stuff.
Like what?
Like partying and junk.
Okay. I'm Dave and I like to party.
I'm Dave and I also like to party.
Yes. Okay. So listen, what are we kind of landing on for this? Well, like before I say that, the popularity of this thing,
yes, yep,
it comes in the worst of times. Obviously,
I feel like we've seen that with something else too, and I'm trying to remember what that topic was. There was another topic where it was like whenever society's issues were the worst, we would see this increase, but it's escaping me, so forget it.
Ooh.
But absolutely, you're right. It's like, why is that, Greg? Why, when times are tough, do we Ouija boards?
It's when we need answers the most, or if it's times when, or if it's like World War I or World War II, or like maybe even COVID. Like I wonder if it's like, you know, a lot of people are passing away, and this is, you know, out of desperation. It's like, well, I mean, maybe I can reach this person.
I could see it happening during COVID more as like a boredom thing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like what can we do that's kind of fun to break things up versus like I'm looking for an answer. I guess people might have. I don't know. I do know that, you know, it's funny because I wonder if this is a product of it. And I would love to actually know if this is just my observations or if this is real. So like I went to Salem today, actually. I was in Salem earlier today. And awesome. I was at stores and like witchcraft stuff there is everywhere, right? It seems super popular today though. Like or nowadays, I should say, within like the last few years when I go, like the witchcraft stuff, those stores that sell like, you know, anything that goes in line with that stuff is just, those stores are bumping, you know, constantly. And I wonder if there's an increase recently because of what you're talking about, people wanting to express spirituality or connect with things or get answers or maybe even a sense of control. during
Yeah, and I wonder.
times that are tough. And obviously we just had COVID, and then you have all the social unrest and everything like that that's taken place.
Or like in like maybe popular religions they've been let down by, or like they've been exposed to, like sort of the dark side of these religions have kind of shown their face in the past, like, few decades. So maybe that's a part of it too, like seeking alternative,
I was just comparing it from my own like experience, remembering like years prior COVID versus now. And like, Salem's always, crowded. It's especially in October. You go to Salem in October, and it's insane. But like, I just noticed some particular stores being more busy than usual than I remember them, and that could be just a totally like perception. But I wonder if there is any correlation.
Well, doesn't that go against? Isn't sort of these stores selling all this stuff, mass producing this stuff, kind of go against what you're saying? Like, so does that take away from the validity? Like, if just because they're selling like 50,000 crystals, like, does that crystal still as powerful because it's not as unique? I wonder too.
And I don't have enough knowledge of that to be able to speak on it. But I wonder that you go into any of those stores and you see things like stocked, and it's like, well, okay, what's like the science behind that? What's the, what's
oh yeah, like it's like a built-in spell, like this is a love spell, or like this will bring you love, like if you have this, it's like a piece of hair in there or something like that, and you're like, all right, well, these all are. You know what I mean?
But I mean, I guess it's having access to the things that you utilize in your spirituality, I guess, makes sense. So having them produced at a more increased rate probably helps people be able to practice the way they want to.
Yeah.
And then having them in like these stores is definitely beneficial for them. And I mean, and you go there and it's fun. Like the atmosphere is fun because it's people just being themselves and being able to express themselves. And I love that. So I think that's kind of the draw to going there, even though it has that darker tinge to it. Right. But it's not dark. Like witchcraft is not dark. It's just dark because of the history.
Yes. And even the history, if we shine a light on it, just like any other kind of darkness, sometimes even the darkness in ourselves, like if you shine a light on it, you expose it, and maybe it's different than what you thought. No, but I think that I stand with the idea that a Ouija board, just because it's mass produced, a crystal, just because it's mass produced, could have, doesn't really need to be significantly less powerful. It's the same way, like, if growing up Catholic, I think we both did, right? I mean, holy water or like a priest blessing a necklace for you or something like that was a common thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was plenty of that to go around.
So, what's so funny? This ties into a movie I just watched last night.
Okay.
Watched Nun 2.
Okay.
And one of the characters in it questions the, turning wine into blood and, the bread and, what it represents. And then the other nun says to her, you have to have undying faith in order for it to come to fruition. Yeah. And they were talking, and that's kind of like the message in that story is having faith and things like that. And that's the thing that you need in order to make anything work in whatever sense it's supposed to work. So I guess maybe that's kind of the idea here. In order for it to work, you need to have faith in whatever it is.
And that faith can be powerful if multiplied through a bunch of different people. So if you're standing around the table with 4 people who have equal faith in something, then there could be a powerful experience. Something can happen. But if one of them is playing games, like your sister, who we don't really appreciate that, it could ruin the whole experience, right?
It could. Here's the thing, though. Could the faith also create that subconscious communication through involuntary or through voluntary movements that we don't even realize we're making? Yes. Could we be creating that through our subconscious?
So even if we explain it as like this is us interpreting our subconscious and, not unlike what we talked about with dreams or psychedelics, I think that the exploring the subconscious is as scary as anything that you're going to find in the world. I think that's very scary stuff.
I agree. It doesn't make it any less powerful for it to come out because it's coming out on a board and it's the thoughts that we're having in our head. I actually think that that's pretty cool if we're able to extract our subconscious thoughts in any way, like, because that, how else are you doing it? If you're not getting it on the board, then they're just sitting there. It's just important for people to maybe know that's where the
like
coming
say
from.
to yourself,
it's not
like,
the board. It's not
right.
Right.
Like say you say something awful or something awful comes out, like I think my husband's cheating on me, so I should kill him. That's like me should be like, hold on, wait, is that me saying that? Maybe I need to like explore that a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
Before I make any rash decisions
with a therapist.
Yes. Or maybe I should call the police before I. But
Okay.
I think
so. I like the fact that we didn't like necessarily land on completely different sides, but I do feel like you have a little bit more belief that there could be multiple things going on. I tend to believe that it's more of, like we just were talking about, that subconscious thought. So, but it sounds like there is some basic understandings of how this works, and hopefully people, if they do decide to dabble with it over the next few weeks while we continue these October spooky games or whatever you're doing, hopefully you guys are thinking about that. Like, if you do have an experience, what's causing that? Do you believe it's your subconscious? Could it be your subconscious? Is there something else guiding those fingertips? Let us know.
Yeah, please let us know.
Follow up.
And one more thing, it's interesting that we bring up psychedelics at the end there, because the most important things that are going to determine how the trip, I guess you could say, unfolds is the set and setting. We talked about that, right? Like where you do it, what it's like there. So I think the same thing would be true with these things, where like if we're doing it on a Sunday afternoon and on a sunny day on my front porch, it's not going to be a scary thing. But if we're doing it and it's like it's midnight and there's a storm and the wind's blowing and the lightning's crashing, and we're going to have a whole different experience. Yeah. So I think set and setting plays a role with these things too.
Excellent.
So you really have to be, just like with the psychedelics, you have to be, I don't think you really have as much of a choice with the psychedelics, but you have to be willing to let go. And what the psychedelics do is allow you to let go. And believing in this is what allows you to let go. And maybe the faith that you put into it is what makes it dangerous. Okay. Or what the hell do I know?
Yeah.
And David, we're all gonna be watching out for you with your multiple Ouija boards.
They've been here forever. Nothing's happened, Greg.
I know. And I like that from a therapist's point of view, something that scared you as a kid, you've taken that thing and said, you know what? It's not going to have any power over me anymore. I have it now. I own it. I can look at it and it doesn't scare me anymore. So that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of a theme. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this story on Ouija boards. We didn't even talk about the pronunciation.
Yeah. What are you going with? Ouija?
Ouija.
Yeah.
Ouija.
That's what I'm going with here. So no arguments there.
No.
Actually, you know what?
Have you heard it? Yeah, I say Ouija. I used to say Ouija board. Do I say Ouija? I think I say Ouija. But yeah, I used to say Ouija. And then I heard people say it other ways.
Well, if it's the we for the French yes, and ja or ya for German
for Jamaican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's technically Ouija would be the closest, but I think it's tomato situation.
I don't think I ever really knew how to say it until that movie Ouija came out, and then I heard like they were saying it. So
yeah,
all right. So that's how
they probably did their due diligence to at least say the movie right. Yeah.
Part 1 was trash. Part 2 was actually kind of cool.
Oh, can I one last thing? Everything else aside, because to horror amateur to a horror professional.
Sure.
I dipped a toe in the Pet Sematary Bloodlines prequel movie.
You watched it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought everyone. So I watched it, despite watching everyone's reviews say that it sucks terribly. I kind of liked it.
Okay. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, I had a full load of movies I had to watch over the weekend, but I will check it out. What's on?
It's on
Plus.
Yeah.
I'd
be interested to know what you think, because I read that book and I always found Judd fascinating, and like the story he tells, and that part in the old movie.
Yeah, I know that part's cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Like that was
scary.
the scariest part of the whole movie, I
It's
think.
part of
Besides
it. Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah, it's funny because like months ago, I have a buddy who does like he has to do the production notes for the film. So like what you read about the film, he writes that, and he
yeah.
watched it and he was like, eh. He's like, just so you know, this is coming out in like 6 months, and keep your expectations low. So I haven't like, really sought it out, but I'll check it out because
but it's
I appreciate you giving me a recommendation. So yeah.
So I know it's not like the strongest recommendation. I'm definitely not. It's not going to be like an every year watch like I do with some horror movies, but the lighter ones, I would say. But yeah, no, I didn't see the huge problem. And I think sometimes the critics are just snobby.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Sometimes they are, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you get out of here then.
Okay. All right, everybody.
Review, right? Reviews are good.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. If you are able to, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us on our social media, but even more importantly, we'd love if you would offer a rating and review so we know how you're enjoying the episodes. We've been pumping these out weekly for over a year now. We are really far in, so it'd be nice to know, if you've seen any progress. I thought about that recently because I actually had a friend talk about that, like how different we sound from like episode 1 to he listened to a more recent one. He's like, it's good. It's good progress. So I'd love to hear if others notice that and stuff like that. So those are things that, we're just looking to make sure that we're offering the most that we can offer to everybody. So thank you for listening, and we will be back next week. And I think we already alluded to what our next week's episode is last week, but yeah, we're excited. It's going to be a doozy.
Yes, this is exciting for me.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Enjoy your October week. We love you and miss you. Goodbye.
We love you and miss you. Let's do it.